Please welcome your host for ZenCon 2013, Joe Stagner.
Good morning. Oh, come on. I know we're developers and it's early, but good morning. Awesome. On behalf of myself and all the folks at Zend, I have great pleasure in welcoming you to ZenCon 2013. You folks have probably experienced this, that sometimes it's difficult to explain to non-technical people what we do for a living. But I'm always tickled to be able to tell folks that I work with the technology that powers the majority of the webs on the World Wide Web, the apps that you folks are building. It's always been fun to be a PHP developer, but today, with companies more and more adopting PHP into line of business, mission-critical enterprise applications, a movement towards service-oriented application problem-solving, and mobile-first, mobile-everywhere strategies, it's even more exciting to be a PHP developer. So in a few minutes, Andy Gutman's the CEO and co-founder of Zend is going to come up and show you some of the interesting things that we've been working on at Zend to help improve the PHP development experience. But first, if you'll bear with me, we're going to go through just a couple of pieces of housekeeping to get started. First, we'd like to invite you to share your ZenCon experience with the folks that aren't able to be here with us. So please do that in two ways. First, by using the ZenCon hashtag, as many of you are already doing. And also, we're going to have some special fun with the elephant hashtag. I'm going to give you details about that in just a minute. Next, I want to invite you to find a Zender. There are two ways that you can do this. One is Zenders will be wearing the gray Zend team shirts with the Zend logo on it. You can find one of those people. Or you can find someone who's wearing the square Zend logo pin that you see here being modeled by our Vice President of Global Operations, Siddharth, who also owns all of the worldwide sales operations. I especially want to invite you to meet Siddharth. He told me the other day that his personal mission was to have a direct conversation with every single Zend attendee. So if you see him in the hall or at the Zend booth, pull him aside. If you have questions or we can help, please don't hesitate to ask us. But also, we look at ZenCon as the best opportunity that we'll have all year to engage with you and get your feedback to learn what sorts of things you're doing with PHP, what are your challenges, and what are the ways that we can improve our services and our product offerings to help you maximize your PHP experience. So please take a moment, grab a Zender, and give them some feedback about what sort of work you're doing in PHP. I'd also like to invite you to rate the sessions that you attend. By providing us with this feedback, you help us craft each year's ZenCon so that we can make the events better and better and better. And as a little bit of incentive, we've put all of the sessions listed on Joined In. It's very simple to use. Just go to Joined In, log in, find the ZenCon 2013 event, pick a star rating for your session, leave a comment, and every day we'll do a random drawing for somebody that rates a session, and you'll get some Zen swag and a gift card for $100. We did something else new this year. We had an application contest for mobile apps, and we had a collection of really great submissions. Espen, this young man, got a unanimous vote, and I want to invite you to use the app that he's created. You can go on your mobile device to zencon.com, and you'll get a screen that asks whether you want to go to the full site or whether you want to use the mobile app. Or if you're browsing from a laptop, just go to m.zencon.com. Espen made this app, and he's worked very hard with our IT folks to get it deployed and make it scalable. I'd like to bring Espen up so that you all can meet him. He's become very popular at Zend. Everybody in Zend and Zend in marketing and IT has gotten to know Espen pretty quickly, but he's a little bit of a shy guy, and I wanted to ask you guys to help us encourage him to do an uncon session on how he built the app, but I wasn't sure how I would get you all to meet him. So somebody on the marketing team came up with this idea. I'm going to give this to Espen. Now, these are really rare. I don't even have one. But I figured that if you hang on, a little advice, People are crazy about these elephants. Hang on with both hands when you leave the room today, but I'm pretty sure you'll get to meet almost everybody between here and your first session. All right. Thanks very much. Now you're probably wondering, how can I get one of those red elephants? Is anybody wondering that? How can I get one of those? You are? Awesome. Yeah, these are pretty popular, I guess. All right, so yes, you can get your own red elephant. Here's how you do it. Inside the attendee bag that you received when you checked in, there's an elephant hunt card. All you need to do is find that answer card in your bag, install Zen Server on your machine. Now, is there anybody that didn't bring a laptop to ZenCon? All right, there's one guy I can see out there. So for the one guy that didn't bring a laptop, what you can do is go to the Zen booth. We have a few laptops set aside where you can do the install there. Go to zencon.com/elephant, and note the incorrect spelling of elephant. It's spelled like the real elephant, not the PHP ant. But follow the questions with the hints that you'll find at that web page. Answer the questions on the card, and then take that card to the Zen booth, and you can trade that completed card for a red chili elephant. I told you we wanted to do something special with the elephant hashtag. So another little fun contest that we thought we would have throughout ZenCon is when you get your red elephant, take photos of chili and you throughout the course of your ZenCon experience. Post them on Twitter using the hashtag elephant, and each day a team from our marketing department will choose the one that we like the best, and the winner will win a piece of Zen swag as well as a $100 gift card. Now, on to the interesting technical stuff. I'd like to get started by bringing up on stage the Chief Marketing Officer for Zend, Elaine Lennox.
Good morning, everybody. That's much better. See, Joe, I got a better response for some reason. You woke him up. Thank you for warming up the crowd. So I'm going to start us off by saying, when I get the clicker working. Okay, I'm going to start us off by saying thank you to some of our sponsors. The first thing I want you all to know is we have an amazing range of sponsors at the conference. In the expo hall, you have product managers, people who really make decisions about the products and the offerings from pretty much every company on this list. And they come to ZenCon because they want to hear your opinion on what they should do. What products should they create? What are they getting right? What are they getting wrong? So I just really want to encourage you to spend time with all of the sponsors because they pay good money to be here because they care about you, right? They want to talk to you. So we have some amazing sponsors this year. We have IBM as a platinum sponsor, and we have two teams from the IBM organization. We have the IBM Smart Cloud team. They offer an enterprise platform as a service, IBM Smart Cloud, and they're actually going to be offering you the chance to do a limited preview. What that is the new version of Smart Cloud that won't be out until maybe later this year, maybe next year. They're actually offering developers at this conference the chance to participate in a limited preview. So the only way you can get access to that is to talk to someone at the IBM booth. It's a pretty special opportunity. We also have the IBM I organization here, and we have a whole series of IBM I clients and IBM I developers. There's a special reception for IBM I as well. If you're an IBM I developer and you're not familiar with that reception, come see me or any of the Zend team and we'll get you the information. At the gold level, we have RightScale and we have VMware. VMware has a really interesting offering. It's called the VMware vCloud Automation Center. And what it lets you do is create anything as a service. And they're going to be demoing that and talking about it at the VMware booth in the expo hall next door. At the silver level, we're really excited to have Google, and in particular the Google Cloud Platform. And you'll have a chance to hear from Peter S. Magnuson, who's the Director of Engineering for Google's Cloud Platform and Services this afternoon here in the keynote. We also have Red Hat and the Red Hat OpenShift team. and they're going to be talking about the OpenShift platform, and you can get access to Zend Server for free as a developer through the OpenShift platform. And we have the Microsoft Windows Azure team here as well. And then we have a great range of bronze sponsors. We've got Amazon Web Services, EngineYard, AppDynamics, OSS Cube, and Rackspace. So I just want to say, you know, take advantage, some really great offers and offerings they're making available just to you. Let's see if I can get this to work. Okay, so let's start by maybe doing a little bit of a summary of the conversation we've had back and forth on the stage and among ourselves at the ZenCon event for the last few years. And the reason I want to go here is I'm going to show you next a little bit of where we are today against these trends. So for the last few years at ZenCon, we've talked about mobile first. In particular, last year, this was a big focus, the concept of disassociating your user interface and your front end from your back-end logic and looking at how to do that with an API-based architecture. We also talked about, and we keep reinforcing this point of iterative and rapid development. And I'm going to talk more about, we're doing well on the development side with iterative development. We're not doing quite so great in the IT side of the house on getting those applications all the way to market fast. We talk a lot in this forum about how to develop in concert with the business, in particular, things like user-centric design. And we also talk about building for third-party consumption and the importance of APIs in that kind of architecture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit of what this looks like today. And perhaps the biggest topic, the one at the bottom there, is we've talked the most about cloud, right? About the various cloud platforms. And just look at the number of cloud vendors that are here today with us, platform as a service vendors, because they want your input. So cloud continues to be a hot topic. But let me show you what it looks like today. We're in the really interesting position at Zend that we get to talk to all of you, and we also put out these surveys. The last Developer Pulse survey we did, the Zend Developer Pulse, earlier this year, got 5,000 responses. Really amazing. So I want to also say thank you to all of you who participate in those. And this will give you a little bit of an idea of some of what we're seeing. So if you look at the mobile-first development side, what we saw is in the last survey this year, 91% of you all, 91% of the 5,000 developers who answered this survey said they're working on mobile applications. Now, that's up hugely from a year ago. It was only 66% last year. But that isn't really surprising to me when you consider that PHP is now the #1 language being used to write the back end of mobile applications. What you see on the bottom right is kind of interesting. It says 72% of developers are creating API-centric architectures, or at least writing with APIs in their applications. Actually, that data point is a year old. It's from the survey a year ago. So I think if we were to ask that question again right now, it would be closer to 90% are working on an API-centric architecture. And then when it comes to using the cloud, like I said, we've talked a lot about this. What we see, though, is on the development side, so using the cloud for development purposes, huge, really, really huge, very pervasive. When it comes to taking that application into production, it's really variable. There's a little bit of private cloud, a lot of public cloud, a teeny bit of hybrid, and then on the public cloud side, it's really diverse. There's no one cloud that's won out yet. It's a really, really diverse playing field right now. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that evolves over the next few years. But what I'd like to do is talk about what I consider to be one of the most important questions that we ask in this survey. And it is the question of, what is a developer's favorite beer? So let me just see if anyone in the audience has a concept of this. Anyone give me an answer? What is the developer's favorite beer based on 5,000 responses? Say that again? Free. Oh, how can you not consider that to be an awesome answer? Who would it come from? Down here? Free beer, yes. You know, we never put that in the question set. We should have. Although I don't think we needed to ask 5,000 developers to get that answer. Kind of obvious. But if you were to choose a brand of beer. Brand of beer? Okay, the answer is Heineken. It actually surprised us. I know, it really surprised me. But I think it's because we've got a really international crew, and Heineken happens to be the #1 brand when you look at it on a global basis, coming from a marketing person. But for whatever it's worth, that actually was the answer. Guinness was pretty high up there as well. But like I said, each year we ask a very serious question along with all the less serious questions. No, I'm joking with you guys. So this year, the serious question was, anyone guess? It was, what color should we make the elephant? So this year's serious question was about the elephant. And I thought you might all be interested in seeing the actual answer set that came back in order. So as you probably guessed, the #1 color this year for the elephant was red. So if anyone's looking for the answer on why did we do the red elephant, it was the #1 response in this survey of 5,000 developers when we asked the question. Next in line were orange, yellow, purple, and a tiny bit of black. So you can all watch this space for next year. I will point out that purple happens to be my favorite color. So we'll see. Orange came in next. Purple's vying for this slot. But for this year, I'm really excited to introduce you all to Chili, the red elephant here. And if anyone can tell me, by the way, how many elephants are in these 2 stacks, I will send you another elephant right away. So hold them up. Not enough. Good point, good point. Not enough was a good answer. See me afterwards for your elephant. There's more in the expo hall. We have an elephant for every single person at the event. Okay, so let me go back to a more serious topic of what are we really seeing today as the biggest issue in these surveys that we're doing. And what we're seeing as we go out and ask developers what's happening is that there is one issue above and beyond everything else that is coming out as a problem for the developer community to get today. And here's what it is. It is that 87% of you say that although we've made huge progress with agile development and getting our applications developed faster, 87% of developers experience delays in getting those applications into production. And that's nothing to do with did we develop the right application, did we do a good job. That's all to do with the process of how we get those applications out to market. And you can see on this page some of the reasons for that. One reason is inconsistent environments between development, staging, and production. We don't have the same environment, so it causes delays as we try to transition between different environments. Another reason is lack of automation. Very little automation in most companies. Ideally, you should be able to push a button and get your application from one stage to the next. The real world doesn't work like that yet. And so that lack of automation causes some real challenges. And then the other one we see is, and this is a response from your responses to the survey, lack of collaboration with operations. Now, when I see that, I don't read that as developers and operations don't like to talk to each other and we don't love each other. Not at all. What that's about is we don't have the right tools and we don't have visibility across the teams. Perhaps the best example of that is when we have a problem in production with an application and the ops team turns to the development team and says, hey, your code isn't working, fix it. And most of the time what has to then happen is the development team has to actually go reproduce the problem. You know, that's what I mean by lack of visibility. If you could just see exactly what was happening in production, then you could fix the problem more easily. But because of that lack of visibility and lack of tools, it becomes a huge issue to fix production errors. And so those are some of the issues that are coming out today as still being the biggest problems for developers. I've summarized for you a little bit of the trends, mobile-first development, what we're seeing happening. What I'd like to do now is actually bring up Andy Gutmans, who is the CEO and co-founder of ZEND, and Andy's going to talk to you about what is ZEND going to do to help with this particular problem that it takes too long to get code into production.
Not a great clicker. Let's see. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so thanks a lot for coming. As Elaine said, we're getting a lot of feedback. We get thousands of developers giving us feedback throughout the year. We're also very, very fortunate that we're actually able to talk to a lot of customers and PHP users writing business-critical apps and better understand what their challenges are. We're definitely seeing that the PHP world is at the center of mobile, the center of cloud services, and that's creating a lot of new requirements and pressures on companies. One example, just recently, I was talking to a very large media company, one of the largest and a well-known brand. And they came to us talking about they're looking for a lightweight application development solution. That's exactly what they called it. And this was a company that was really a Java shop traditionally. Most of their developers were Java, but they realized that if they had to respond much faster to the market, they needed to do things differently. And so they came to talk of us also because of PHP. They realized PHP has productivity benefits, but it wasn't only about the language that they talked to us about. It was about the whole process. How can they change the way they're building and delivering apps? And I think this is a really important point. It's not just about agile development. I'm sure all of you guys are great developers and writing code really fast. And most companies have already embraced agile development methodologies, whether it's Scrum or Kanban. At Zend, we're using Scrumban, so we're doing both. But writing code and writing code fast doesn't really help you get that into production faster and really get to a higher pace of innovation. And so what we've been really focused on at Zend is trying to move from agile development to agile delivery. And the way I think about agile delivery is from the inception of an idea, how long is it going to take you to get that see that running in production, not only how fast, but also making sure that the quality and the user experience is right. Because especially in a mobile world, if the user experience and quality isn't right, you're going to crash and burn. And as far as I'm concerned, that should happen in a matter of weeks and sometimes days, not in a matter of months or years. And so we've been putting a lot of thinking here at Zend on what can we do as a company to really help you get to a full-blown agile application delivery process. And it raises some very challenging questions. The first one is, how do you actually build the right architecture to make sure you can actually be very responsive to requirements that your customers have? Second question is, how do you actually move code faster from development into ops? But while you're moving faster, make sure you're actually getting to an unprecedented quality level, much better than you've ever done before. It almost sounds like those two things are in conflict. Those are some of the questions we had to ask ourselves. And then I would say third, especially as a lot of folks are building mobile apps and cloud services, we all want to be successful, but when we are successful, we may get millions of users using our apps. How do we make sure we're actually ready for that? We're future-proofing our operations and our infrastructure and make sure we can scale out and meet that demand. And so we've got a pretty strong opinion at Zend on what it's really going to take companies to get there. First of all, we think you have to build the right API-centric architecture. It's all about APIs. You want to meet multiple form factors. You want to integrate with partners. You want to future-proof your architecture. You want to have a very flexible architecture so you can innovate extremely quickly. The second thing is embracing continuous delivery. Continuous delivery is all around how fast you can really move that code from development into operations, collaborate together with operations, and make sure that you're able to innovate at a pace of, as I said before, daily or weekly, not monthly or annually. And then third, how do you make sure that you're actually taking full advantage of cloud? You get the flexibility of cloud, the agility, the consistency, and the scalability of cloud. So these are all the three key requirements that we've pointed out at Zend. And today we're going to talk to you about what Zend is actually doing with each one of those. What we're going to share with you today are three key areas that we've actually been working on that aim to address those three requirements. The first one is we're launching a new project. It's an open source project called App Agility. App Agility is the world's best way to create high quality APIs. We've seen a lot of users trying to build out these API architectures. It's very hard. Anyone can build one service, but really managing a bunch of services long-term, versioning them, making sure error handling is done correctly, all those pieces are actually not that easy. And so what we've done is we've taken those best practices, and codified them into a project that we're going to talk about in a lot more detail called App Agility. We've actually worked with a number of customers over the past year to build out continuous delivery environments with them. And so we leverage Zend Server's automation capabilities. We integrate it into their full environment. And today we have customers that are just able to, at a click of the button, get high-quality code into production in a matter of seconds. And so what we're doing here is codifying the best practices and publishing them. And we'll talk also a lot more about that. And then, as most of you know, in the past 2 years, we've been really focused at giving you choice of deployment in the cloud. And so today, we're going to make some announcements on expanding that ecosystem so we give you as much choice and flexibility to deploy your applications. So what I would like to do at this point is invite Elaine back up here and also Zev Surasky, our CTO and co-founder. And I know you're all eager to see the real technical pieces, so we're also going to show some code. They're going to tell you a bit more about App Agility and what this whole project is about.
Great, thanks. Okay, so Zev and I are going to do a little bit of a Q&A for you here. So Zev, API-centric design, why does it even matter?
Well, it matters quite a bit. There's several different reasons. The first one is that APIs enable mobile. And we all know just how important mobile is today. All of those apps that you have on your phone, pretty much all of them consume information and services from the server backends using APIs. So API is absolutely important. But it doesn't just stop there. The second reason is that if you API enable your app, you can pretty much support any sort of device, whether it exists today or will exist in the future. So we're not talking just about mobile devices, but also tablets, websites, those are still around today, machine-to-machine communication, and in the future, probably things like smartwatches and Google Glass.
I'm still waiting to get that.
Yeah, I am too. And also, probably also devices that we're not even imagining today. So if you API enabling your app, you're really future-proofing your application, and you'll be able to support any device that exists or will exist and tailor the right user experience for it. And last but not least, API enabling your app can enable you to create an ecosystem around your application. And when people hear about ecosystems, they often think, okay, yeah, that's really for the Facebooks and Twitters of the world, but it's really not just for them. If you API enable your code, then you may find that another part of the company can suddenly start using your data or services, or that your clients or partners can suddenly start using it. And that's quite important.
Cool. So App Agility, tell us more. What is it exactly?
So App Agility is a new open source project that we're announcing today. It's the easiest and fastest way to API enable your code. And that allows you to really focus on the stuff you're good at, which is the business logic, and not have to worry about the plumbing of this API layer. What App Agility does for you isn't just enabling you to do the simple stuff of exposing a RESTful service or an RPC-based service, but really tackle some of the more challenging aspects of API enablement, like versioning, like filtering and validation, like error handling or documentation, and you can really do all of those things without having to worry about the implementation details. The last thing that's important to remember about App Agility is that it's really not some kind of code generator that you use once and then you have to tinker with whenever you need to change something. It allows you to manage your APIs as the requirements evolve, and they always do. You always want to add some additional APIs or to alter existing APIs or deprecate some APIs. App Agility allows you to do all of that very, very simply.
Cool. And it's based on Zend Framework, right?
Yes. You actually don't have to be a Zend Framework user, let alone a Zend Framework expert, in order to use that. For the most part, and for the vast majority of people, the fact that it's on top of Zend Framework 2 is really an implementation detail. It made sense for us to use a framework so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, so that we don't have to recode things like database access or routing. But as a user of App Agility, you don't really have to worry about it. Now, why Zend Framework? Well, the team that worked on App Agility, for some reason, had some pretty strong bias towards Zend Framework of all frameworks, and we ended up going with that.
open source. Are you going to open source this?
Absolutely. It is an open source. It's already, the source code is already open as of today. You can go to appagility.org and check it out. It made sense for us to open source it. We think that the developer community is in need of a good, easy, simple way of creating APIs, creating and maintaining APIs. And to us, it just made sense to open source it so this really becomes the standard of API creation and management. We actually believe that this Appagility project will attract non-PHP users to PHP, to the PHP ecosystem, because it will really be the best way to create APIs in any language, not just in PHP.
Cool. Can I see it?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. I think that's enough of theoretical talk. At this point, I'd like to call Matthew Finney to the stage. Many of you probably know Matthew from his other capacities, but as of today, he also has a new role, which is the project lead for Appagility. Matthew.
Hello. So I'm going to show off Appagility here, if we can get it up on the screen. Appagility is a web application that you can use to create and manage your APIs. And here we have the welcome screen. I'm going to go ahead and hit this big Get Started button, but I first want to mention what you're seeing on the right-hand side is the Chrome Developer Toolbar. And I have that up there because Appagility is built using API-first practices, the same stuff that we're going to be recommending you as PHP developers do as well. So you're going to be seeing API calls happening over on the right-hand side. So I hit this, and we get to our dashboard. You can see all sorts of little requests are happening. And I'm going to be doing an API that is around the ZenCon session schedule. I don't really want to recreate the mobile app, but I want to give you a sample of what we can actually do today. First off, I went and grabbed a database of the sessions that we have. So I'm going to add a database adapter in here. And this is one of the pieces that we can do within Appagility. I'm going to give it a unique name. It's a SQLite database. So I just need to give a path to it. Let's see if I can remember where I put it on the system here. Okay, here we go. We'll go ahead and create the adapter, and you can actually see we can introspect these adapters as well and see some of the configuration details. I think I spelled Appagility right, so let's go ahead and write our API. I'm going to hit this nice big button that says Create API, and we'll call it ZendCon for some very obvious reasons. When I create the API, I get to this dashboard that shows the various services that I have. This is a responsive design. We're using AngularJS with Bootstrap 3. So I can condense it. I can actually make it bigger. The layout is a little bit nicer when you've got a full screen here. But you'll notice that we're on version 1. I'm going to go ahead and create a REST service. And it's going to be a DB-connected one because we just decided to use a database here. And this is one of the features that we can do. We just hook up a database adapter, and I'm going to give it the table name, and I'll go ahead and create my REST service, and we can see down here it's now been created. There are some defaults. We can see the routing is up there. We want to do /session there. We've got the allowed HTTP methods. Basically all the default stuff that you're going to be thinking off right off the bat. There's also a lot of other details in here around content negotiation and that sort of thing. We're not going to look at those right now. Now I do want to edit this a little bit, and we can edit. First thing is my application is going to live in the same, the API is going to live in the same root as the application, so I'm going to put a prefix here of /API. I'm also going to only do 10 entities per page, and I'm going to make it read-only. Tabbed too far. Let's go ahead. I'm not going to worry about these other pieces, and I'll save. And we can now take a quick look at the preview here. And sure enough, those changes are all saved there. Great. So next bit is I'm going to copy in some code. You're going to pretend you didn't see this. And this is actually the AngularJS application and the database that I just copied over. The first thing I want to show you, however, is what happens when I try and make a REST request. This here is a Chrome extension called Advanced REST Client. I also use a number of command line tools like curl or HTTPy, but this is a nice one for demoing to you. If I go ahead and hit send down here, we'll see that I actually got an error. And I got a 406 status saying, hey, this is not acceptable. This is one of the pieces that AppAgility takes care of for you. How many of you have done APIs? I'm sure quite a few of you. All these little details of error handling, HTTP negotiation, those things are hard. You have to go in and make sure you're taking care of all those details. AppAgility will do that for you, and it gives you a nice payload here. So let's go ahead and give it an acceptable header, and we'll use application JSON. This is one of the opinions that we are using as well, is that we're saying that we think that as PHP developers, it's much easier to develop APIs using JSON. So we're going to go ahead and use this here. And I can send my request, and we'll see that I get this nicely formatted payload. I'm using hypermedia application language for those who are interested. You can see that we actually have 10 sessions on this page, and that there are multiple pages available. So we know it works at this point. I can now go to my application. It didn't exist before, so I have to call it up here. We can see that there are API calls happening over in the right-hand side here. And we now have 10 on here. I can go to the next page, and we can just keep zooming, and you'll see over in the right-hand side we keep getting requests, and it's making those requests to the application. There's a little more information in here as well. It's not just the titles, but we actually have information on the speakers, the sessions, and everything. So I've finished version 1 of this, and it's pretty good, but I'm realizing I actually want to give you a little more information on the speakers. I want you to be able to determine for yourself whether or not this is a good speaker. There's a site called Joined In that provides the ability to see all the conferences that are coming up. You can take a look at the sessions that they have, the speakers for those sessions, and you can see what the ratings are for the sessions and those speakers. So I'm going to make a few calls to Joined In and get an aggregate rating for these speakers, and we'll see if Derek Rethen's any good here. Derek's a good friend of mine. Are you here, Derek? Yay, hi. So let's go over here, and we're going to version this. This is another piece that we've heard from a lot of people, is that versioning APIs is difficult. So we're trying to make it easy. I just clicked a button, we have a new version. We're to version 2. It looks just like version 1, as we can see here. I'm going to edit this just so that we can see the differences. And I'm going to change the number of entities to display to 5. I'll go ahead and save this. And we can take a look and see that indeed it says page size 5. If I go to version 1, we will see that its page size is still 10, and I actually can't edit this anymore, because once we go to a new version, we want to make sure we don't make changes in the previous version so that clients using it don't break. So let's take a look and see what this looks like when I make the actual requests. We do two different ways of doing versioning. The standard way that a lot of people are used to is in the URL. So if you go to Twitter's API, you're going to see that there's a v1, a v1.1, that sort of thing in there. We actually have those capabilities as well. So I'm going to go ahead and prefix this with v2 and send it. And we can see down here that I got 5 sessions. Fantastic. What happens when I go back to v1? I'll go ahead and send. And we can see that we got 10 sessions. Fantastic. Now, the other way that we can do versioning is through content negotiation. What content negotiation allows you to do is keep a single URL, so in this case, API session, and we can version it by simply having the user pass in the version that they want as part of the accept header. So we create a vendor media type for you based on the API name. And then we just pass in the string here. We'll say plus JSON, and I'll go ahead and send. And we can see that with v2, I get number 5. This is great, and I can go back to v1 if I want to at any point. And we can see that that happens as well. So we're able to version the API. We're able to see that we have differences between the versions. We're able to make those requests. Now let's go back to our original goal, which was we wanted to actually add some code into here. So I'm going to create a new REST service, and it's going to be code connected. I said before that I'm going to hit the joined in API. So I don't actually have a database that's happening here. And this is very typical as PHP developers. We're often aggregating information from multiple services. We may be using MongoDB. We might be using a relational database. We may be getting data from a combination of sources, and we want to aggregate and do something with that. We may have some code that we wrote a couple of years ago that we now want to expose as an API. We should be able to do that easily. So what App Agility does is it generates a stub that you go in and you connect your code into there, and you are able to now expose your code as an API with all the formatting, all the error handling that you need. So I'm creating this one called Speaker because we are going to be looking at the joined-in speakers here. I'm going to create the REST service, and we'll take a look at this one. Oh, I can't because I'm in version 2. There we go. Here we go. So if I look at the entity here, I've got a lot of the same things. I'm going to go ahead and edit this one as well. We'll prefix it with API. I'm not worried about pagination, but I do want it to be read-only because I'm not actually going to change anything on joined in at this point. I'll go ahead and save it. If I look at the source code for this, I can actually go and browse this right here in the browser and see some things here. What happens is this resource class that we have has a bunch of stubs, and you're going to connect your code in there. You can write new code in there. You can do whatever you want. By default, it's saying that these methods are not available. So if you try and request them, it's saying it's not implemented. You can't do anything here. I'm going to go ahead and copy in some code. Again, be a little sneaky here so that we can see what the joined-in code looks like. I'm not actually going to show you the joined-in code itself. I'm going to show you how I expose it in here. Essentially, I'm just going to pass my code into the constructor, and then I'm going to call it with the incoming information. So I've got an identifier of some sort. I'm passing it on to my model, which is going to make the actual API calls to joined-in, and then return the result from there. And App Agility will take care of formatting that result into a nice payload that we can take a look at in our response. So what does it all look like? I'm going to go to the version 2 of this, and because we're only doing 5 per page, I'll hit page 6 so we can see Derek again here. It's made the calls here. We can see there's only 5 up here, so we can see we're hitting the version 2 API, and now there's a link for Derek. And I'll make a request here, and it's going to go and fetch his aggregate rating. Oh, 4.35. Well, it's out of 5. I think Derek might be a pretty good speaker, and I might want to see his talk today. So you can see all this is happening. Everything was API-driven. You can see it in the right-hand sidebar. And we have a full API working. This API has multiple versions. It's got error handling, and it will work for machine-to-machine communication as well as your mobile applications. So that's what App Agility is in a nutshell. Thank you for joining me.
Wait, worked? Okay. Passing on the keyboard always works. No need for clickers. So thanks a lot, Matthew. Awesome job. I want to just recap some of the highlights of App Agility. It's a new open source project that we're announcing today. I'm sure that some of you in the crowd have already checked out the website. If you remember just one thing about App Agility, it should be that it's the easiest and fastest way to develop APIs and to API enable your code. It's opinionated, and that means that we're actually allowing you to implement industry best practices without having to worry too much about the details of those best practices, because we take care of them for you. What Matthew did in 10 minutes, if you try to attack it yourself without very deep knowledge of all of those standards and best practices, this could take you weeks or months, and you may not get it right, and you may get it right only the second or third time. So this really saves you a lot of time. Today, we're launching App Agility 0.6. It includes the features that you've seen Matthew demo, including the creation of RESTful services, RPC services, versioning, error handling, but we're hard at work to add some of the other things I talked about, like authentication, validation, filtering, and documentation. We absolutely welcome contributions. It's a fully, completely open project that is on GitHub. You are more than welcome to fork it and to send contributions or to collaborate with us on the mailing list and help us turn it into the best API builder in the world. Thank you very much.
So we think app agility is a really big deal. When we looked into the market, we saw a huge vacuum. And that vacuum is not just in PHP. I think it's an application development landscape in general. It's very hard to actually build APIs the right way. And we haven't actually found any good projects that are codifying those best practices. So our goal is to really strengthen the overall API development market and make sure that when companies, not only if they're doing PHP already, but if they're coming from Java or .NET and they want to get into this modern architecture, that they actually come and embrace our architecture, and of course with that, PHP. The second thing I mentioned was continuous delivery, a critical requirement to get to agile application delivery. The way I think about continuous delivery is when a company needs to make change, it's able to make that change very, very quickly. Now, some people misunderstand continuous delivery. They think it's, we have to release 4 times a day. That's not what it means. What it does mean, though, is that when you want to deliver, you can, and you can do it quickly. So some companies may want to release on a bi-weekly basis, but even if they want to do it on a monthly basis, you may still be in situations where you have a critical security issue. You have to fix it in a matter of hours. Now the question is, can you actually do that in a way that is well-structured, high quality, and get it done? So to get to continuous delivery, you have to change your mindset. You have to really embrace automation. You have to collaborate a lot more between dev and ops. And you need to be able to focus on building out a consistent workflow from dev to ops. One of the ways to think about it is as a conveyor belt that's frictionless and automated from code all the way into production. And look at that. We actually have a conveyor belt. It's even in the shape of a Z for Zend. And what I'm going to talk about here is what I think are some of the critical components of building out a continuous delivery environment. First of all is the continuous integration stage. That's where you should be integrating your code on an ongoing basis. And the idea there is to, at any given point in time, have some version of runnable code that has already passed certain quality checks and could, if you wanted to, be launched into production. Making sure you build out a good continuous integration environment also ensures that you don't get yourself into integration hell, which companies can get into if they're building a lot of code for many weeks and waiting with integrating all the developers' work until late, and then you could have delays that could take weeks or sometimes months. We'll show you what the continuous delivery lifecycle looks like later on. I'm going to talk about it in a lot more detail. The only thing I want to add here, though, is some companies only take continuous integration to kind of the unit testing phase. We think you should go a bit beyond that and make sure that at any given point in time, you're also ensuring that you can actually deploy the application, and you are deploying it as part of that into a testing environment, and you're doing some very basic automated functional testing so you really know that at any given point in time, you have deployable code. The second piece is release automation, making sure you have a very clear, structured way of releasing your project. And preferably that is a self-contained asset that you can deploy, and you can deploy that consistently between testing, staging, and production. Last, and I alluded to that earlier on, actually Elaine talked about the survey we did. You saw the number one issue that companies had in getting code into production quickly was actually infrastructure inconsistencies, and that caused a lot of delays and a lot of failed deployments. So we believe you have to really focus on automating your whole infrastructure. And what that automation needs to be able to do is build a repeatable process to both provision the environment and configure the environment. And you want to use exactly the same process in testing, staging, and production. So by the time you actually deploy your application, you know that you've tested that exact same environment before you went into production. And then last but not least is making sure you're able to respond very, very quickly if something does go wrong. And make sure that dev and ops actually have shared visibility of the application in production. We think that gone are the days where only ops owns the application in production. The development team has to participate in that. Now, that doesn't mean that the developers have to get root access to the servers, but it does mean that you want to have shared visibility and ways to collaborate together to make sure you can tackle any issues. In February, we released Zend Server 6. One of the big focus areas for us in Zend Server 6 was building it out in a way that could be completely automated. So we actually built Zend Server 6 in an API-first manner. So the whole discussion around app agility, that you should build your app in an API-first manner, we actually did that for Zend Server 6. There's nothing that the UI does that isn't a REST JSON-based service. So you can actually completely automate anything in that environment. And what we've seen since we released the product is a lot of our customers have really taken Zend Server and innovated in how they're actually using the product to implement the continuous delivery lifecycle. I'll give you one example. We have one of our customers basically does turnkey online retailing for some of the best-known fashion brands. And what they're basically doing the e-commerce, they're doing the SCM, they're doing the packaging, the shipping, and even the recalls. So they're basically completely turnkey, and you would never know they're behind the scenes, basically driving hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And they have two very big challenges. First of all, their customers are the marketing department of these fashion brands. They don't understand technology. So they're just consistently shoving new requirements down their throat, and they just can't keep up. And they're having a very, very hard time, and they can't explain. They'll never be able to explain to the marketing folks what it really takes to get that done. The second problem they have is any downtime. While, if it's your own business, any downtime is bad, and sometimes even horrific, and you lose a lot of revenue. In this situation, downtime can actually lead to losing the customer completely. And no one wants to lose a customer that actually that is making hundreds of millions a year. So they put a big focus on trying to build out this whole continuous delivery environment to make sure they could respond much, much faster to these ongoing changes they're being asked for, and they had to make changes for new promotions and things within days, not within weeks. And second, they needed to have a structured process to actually build this out so that when they did do an agile deployment, they were sure that the quality level was going to be very, very high, and they could avoid downtime. And so what they basically did is they took the capabilities that we have around release automation and infrastructure automation, application management, and they integrated that with Bamboo as continuous integration. They automated the infrastructure with Puppet and then using Zend Server to automate the PHP front, which is the PHP provisioning configuration. And then they didn't want to give developers access into production, but they used our API-first architecture to build what they call the developer portal, so developers could actually see the monitoring events and the code traces through a developer portal that also showed output from continuous integration. So that's just one example, but we've worked with several customers who've built out these kind of environments. And what I'd like to do at this point is actually invite on stage Maurice. He's one of our lead architects. Maurice has worked with a number of customers who've built out continuous delivery. And he's going to show you an example of what continuous delivery could look like in your environment.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually show you today what continuous delivery, what our idea of continuous delivery really is. And in order to do that, I need to log into my laptop here. Whoops. So what Andy didn't mention is that we actually embrace continuous delivery at Zend with the development of Zend Server itself. So why did we call it a blueprint as opposed to putting an article together or using some tools, taking some tools, putting them together, and having a completely automated environment? We called it a blueprint because different folks, different companies might be using a lot of different tools. Some of the tools that come to mind for continuous integration, for instance, Jenkins, Hudson, Cruise Control, PHP Under Control. For building, for the process of building, Fing, Ant, Maven. For unit testing, PHP Unit, PHP Unit, PHP Unit. So, for functional testing, we've got bhat-mink, the combination of bhat-mink and Cucumber, right? So my point is, we've got a lot of tools. As a community, we love to produce tools, and this is great. And we want to give an option to have all those tools really integrated. So the way that the blueprint works is really an abstract view of what the solution should be like with concrete implementations, which are called patterns, which you can use, you can pick and choose and customize to fit your own environment. So what is it that makes up this continuous integration, this continuous delivery environment? As Andy said, 4 pieces. We're going to go through them right now. First one is continuous integration. Second one is infrastructure automation. Third one is release automation. And fourth is application management. We're actually going to start with the first one, so continuous integration. Continuous integration is the process of taking your code from development all the way up to your different target environments where it's supposed to go. It consists roughly, generally, of 5 steps. It goes through source control, check out code from source control, run some tests, some unit tests, some code style checks, package the application's code, deploy it onto a target server, and finally, 5, perform some automated functional testing. So what you're about to see is how we actually leverage Zend Server's packaging capabilities using Jenkins, which is a continuous integration server. So it's the controller behind this that actually initiates the builds when something happens, either a trigger or on schedule, to get your code from source control all the way onto this environment. So we're going to go here. We're actually acting on this pre-prod site. And my list of sessions isn't showing up, but that's not a big deal. And we're going to go do an edit here to this file. And we're going to change the title from ZenCon Sessions to, let's say, all right. Now we're going to save this. Going to commit into Git. We don't want to save Composer. And we are going to put a comment. By the way, don't ever do that. Otherwise, your teammates will actually come and hunt you down and make bad things to you. So let's commit. And now if we go back to Jenkins, we see we have a pending build here. And it just started building. So we could just wait and see this progress bar, or if you're anything like me, you probably get a kick of seeing white text on a console. Okay. So this is actually what happens with the Jenkins build. You can see all the steps right here. The first step is checking it out, right? Then we're actually using Fing as a build tool. We run Composer to update all the dependencies and get all the project's dependencies. We run our unit tests. We have 42 successful tests. We package the application into a ZPK file, which is really a zip file that you upload to Zend Server with this kind of a special format. And we finally deploy onto the server. And we see that the deployment is successful. We actually finished in 15 seconds, which is much less than it actually took me to explain this. So if we go back to our ZenCon sessions right here, and we refresh, we see the title change. All right? OK. Now, the other piece really where Zend Server adds a lot of value is the monitoring capabilities of Zend Server. In this flow, I actually didn't integrate functional testing because it's a piece that we're working on. But you could have functional tests running on your code base, and you could have the monitoring running in the background. Because if your unit tests pass and your functional tests pass, you might actually have something that's still wrong under the cover. You may, have a query that is running too long, or you may have a performance problem. And monitoring allows you to tackle those issues and find that out very easily. So the idea here would be when you run your functional test, you can produce a report that will then go into Jenkins, and you can then read from Jenkins and see where the problems are. So as I said, it's a piece that's still in development, and we're hoping to have it soon. So now that we actually have an operational package, we go into the second station. So we finished continuous integration. We went from source control all the way to the server. Now we need to deploy it, okay? And you've actually seen the deployment when I demoed continuous integration, because we wanted to run the functional tests. So we actually had to do a deployment to have a server to run the tests on. But there's more to deployment than this. Deployment in Zend server allows you to create a package of an application, upload it to a server, but also have demo scripts, hook scripts, and input variables that you can specify. So for instance, in your development environment, your production environment, your database connection is probably not the same, your database connection parameters. Those are parameters that you can specify when you upload the package. Another example of these hook scripts, when you can use those hook scripts, is when you want to do something that you can't do on the build server, but you need to do on the server, on the production server itself. So quick example, you want to put a maintenance page up when you upload your code. You want to make sure that nobody hits the server while the server is actually switching over to the new code base. So we're going to go ahead and increase the version here, right? And we're going to switch back to that title, by the way. Let's go back to ZendCon sessions here. Save this. Again, commit. And, whoops. There we go. Another comment. Commit. And you can see the deployment happening on Zend server. If you go to the Applications tab, as soon as the deployment starts, I'm going to see this little icon here switch into staging mode to show me that any day now. OK, that's not good. So let's actually kick this manually. Oh. OK, so I'm building this. Come on. Yeah, it takes a while. There we go. OK. While this is actually staging, if I go and refresh my page, you can see that I have put a maintenance page up. So, most people put we're in maintenance mode. So here at PHP, we just heard elephants. And as soon as the build is finished, and the application has effectively switched over, we are going to go back to our application. So the application becomes available again, and we can look at the sessions back the way they were. Now, one of the important things when you do deployments like this to production is the ability to be able to roll back. And that's a very important feature of deployment of release automation. How do you roll back? Well, it's actually very simple. All you have to do is go here. Let's say that I didn't like the new title that I put up. All I have to do is just go here and just click this button to roll back. And my application, just like that, will roll back. And as soon as that happens, we're going to go back to the previous version that we had of the application. All right. So here we go. We rolled back to 136. I believe the one that I had put up was 137, or I didn't change the version. Anyways, so the application is now rolled back on the staging server. So what about production? How do you get your package to go to hundreds of servers as opposed to the 2 servers that I'm using here in staging? Is it any more complicated? Well, the answer is no. We also took care of infrastructure automation. We launched a Chef integration. We're about to launch a Puppet integration as well. So we have a Chef cookbook that allows you to not only install servers, but also start them up. Start them up and join the cluster and kind of elastically scale the cluster up and down. So what we have here is a set of 2 servers. We've got application servers. We have 55 of them, which is a decently sized cluster, as you might agree. And we've got 10 backup servers, which are ready here and are ready to join the cluster when we need them. So let's go ahead. This is the application on the production server, the same application on the production cluster. How do I actually deploy it? The best practice really is you want to use the same package that you used in staging into production because you've got less chance of a change. So what I have here, just to make it a little more interesting, is I'm actually, going to deploy this manually. I lost my connection. There we go. I am going to deploy this manually from my continuous integration server, from my build server. And this is roughly the command that I'm running. So as you can see, it's really interesting stuff. All it basically says is what server I want to deploy to and what package I want to use. And I'm going to run this. And we're going to see how long that's going to take. Let's switch over to the production server, or the production cluster in that case. Sorry, slow connectivity. There we go. Go into the applications. And you can see the application is staging, so it's in the middle of deploying onto production. That's going to take a few seconds. And as soon as it does, it's going to be, there you go, in the activating stage. And as soon as the activating stage is finished, we're going to have a new version of the application in production right here. There we go. Now, the interesting thing is we're going to take those 10 servers that we have in the backup cluster. So if you look at that URL, you'll see that there's actually nothing but the default Zend server page right here, the default Apache page, I'm sorry. We're going to take those 10 servers, and we are going to join them into the cluster. We're going to do that by executing a recipe, by running a recipe. If I can find the running recipe button. There we go. And execute recipes. Zend server, join cluster. OK, I can't type apparently. There we go. So you see very simply, we're just going to type Zend server join cluster. And we're going to execute the recipe on the standby cluster. And we're going to go ahead and run this. Now, as this is running, if you go back to your screen on our production cluster, you're going to start seeing servers popping up here. When this starts running, there we go. Hopefully. There we go. So you've got a servers joining. You see those servers are actually now joining. They're restarting the cluster. They're doing a graceful restart on the cluster. And the best part of this all is that as this is happening, so the servers are actually getting the application installed automatically. So you don't have anything to do. You don't have to redeploy the application. All you have to do is add servers to the cluster, to the Zend server cluster, and the application automatically gets installed on these servers. Oops. OK, takes a minute. I will show you this as soon as this is done. Normally, so normally you wouldn't have a separate load balancer, right? Normally the servers would come into the rotation on your main load balancers. I just wanted to show the 2 different scenarios here. This is why it's kind of taking a little longer to happen, but it will work. OK. So I've just shown you how to provision an entire cluster using Chef, how to grow a server using Chef, and how the applications get installed completely automated, basically, workflow. Now that we have this and our application is in production, what do we do for continuity? So that should be actually just about ready pretty soon. There we go. Told you it would work. OK, so now that we have our application ready, installed in production, and our cluster is automatically scalable and all that good stuff, what do we do for monitoring? So Zend Server, those of you who actually already know Zend Server, know that Zend Server has a pretty advanced monitoring system. It has monitoring tools, monitoring capabilities. We can see events from an application when you have a PHP error, so that actually might be why we're not seeing the session list. We can go into that, and we can see, if we go into more details, let me take this one, actually, right here. You also have code traces. Code tracing is a profiling tool that is designed to run in production on your server. And it actually gives you the execution flow of your program, function by function, right? With all the function arguments, the return values, and the context in which you're in when you're running the function. And this happens every time there's an event on Zend Server or however you configure it. So it's a very useful tool for diagnostics. Now, sysadmins are not necessarily going to be looking at their regular system or the system that they use usually to monitor their infrastructure as well as Zend Server. They like to have a single pane of glass. They like to monitor one thing. They like to see everything green. They love colors, right? They like to see everything green. And if they see one thing red, they like to dispatch to the right person. So what we did here is, because Zend Server is completely API enabled, we created an integration with Nagios. We created a pattern with Nagios. And what Nagios monitors is simply very simple services that we see on Zend Server. So we can see that we have 4 services in red right now, right? So we've got a notification. We know that we have a restart that is required on the cluster. We see some events here. So we have we're at a critical error because we were having PHP errors popping up. We have the audit trail, which tells you, so you remember when I typed the password wrong the first time when I tried to log into the interface? So that's what the audit trail does. It's change management. So it's a tool to ensure consistency across the entire cluster. And whenever something changes, it will alert you, whether it's a PHP setting, whether you're logging in with the wrong password, whether you have a server cluster that fails. You will be alerted of all these issues. And so this allows the administrator or the ops guy to actually take action and see and dispatch the issue to the right person. They can export the event. They can give code tracing information, et cetera. And last but not least, the cluster status. And that's really it. So we've seen how to go from development to production, how to manage the application, and all the steps in between. All these integrations are open sourced, as Andy is going to announce right now. And that's it. Thank you very much.
How are we doing here? OK. Thanks a lot, Maurice. So what Maurice showed you is an example of what this could look like. We've done quite a few of these engagements with customers, built that out, and very often using the tools that they preferred. So here we showed an example with Jenkins. We've done Bamboo. We've worked with Puppet. And so what we decided to do is take those best practices and really start codifying those best practices so anyone can adopt them. And the way we're thinking about these best practices is at each stage, we actually are going to have a place at Zend where you can read what you should be doing at that stage, and we're going to start publishing plugins into these different components of the continuous integration cycle, so you don't actually have to build that all on your own. You have pre-created components for you. So at the continuous integration stage, we're really focused on helping you do the build, do code quality, and then make sure you have the right packaging capabilities. At the release automation stage, we're focused on making sure you have a very good structured way to deploy your application, deploy it onto clusters. Maurice showed you an example where we actually deployed with one command onto 55 servers on the Amazon cloud. You saw scale up happening, so 10 servers joining the cluster, and we actually auto-configure and auto-deploy the application. And then capabilities such as rollback, which are required. At the infrastructure automation stage, that's where you have to provision the servers, provision your PHP stack, configure it, and make sure you have auto-scaling capabilities. That's where cloud comes in pretty significantly. So we're going to be publishing a number of plugins such as the Chef Cookbook. We're working on Puppet. That's what I would call more of the do-it-yourself. And then we already have the pre-integrated environments in the cloud with Amazon, with IBM, with RightScale, where we actually have templates that you can just with one click launch a whole environment. And actually, Maurice's example is a good example where we used AWS OpsWorks, which is chef automation, to do one-click launching of 55 servers. And then at the application management stage, this is really where I think dev and ops have to come together. This is when the application is in production. You need to make sure you're getting the right performance. You need to make sure you have the same visibility into changes or errors that are happening. And so we've really put a strong focus there on making sure that that visibility does not only get to the ops guy through integrations like Nagios, so they can see the application level at the same time as they see the infrastructure level, but also have capabilities where that data can get exposed to developers. And so what you're going to find today is basically our continuous delivery blueprint. That's available right now on zend.com/blueprint. That's where we've started describing what those best practices are. Our goal is to publish a number of patterns that show how you can do this with the different components you may have in your life cycle. So today we're publishing patterns for Jenkins, for VMware, and Nagios. We're putting the patterns that are codified on GitHub. So these are going to be open source projects. So we welcome contributions. As we were building these out, we already had customers actually contributing to these components. So all these components were built with real implementations and real customers. They weren't just built back in our lab. And then we're focused on codifying additional integrations we've done with customers, such as integrations with Bamboo, Puppet, and Tivoli. So a lot more to come. The goal is really to broaden this ecosystem of plugins and components as much as possible. And we'd love to have you join us and help us build that out. What we're also doing is announcing a continuous delivery assessment. One of the things we've realized is a lot of organizations may have some pieces of this. They may have a continuous integration server, but they don't really have the full continuous delivery lifecycle mapped out. So what happens in the continuous delivery assessment, we have a lead architect like Maurice actually sit with the dev and the ops teams and the managers and make sure you're actually mapping that out and you're figuring out together, okay, what is the right thing for your organization? Because not every organization is going to have exactly the same requirements. At ZendCon, we decided to make a few limited engagements available free of charge. That's also a way for us to learn more and us to basically mature this whole offering. So if you're interested, you think your company could benefit from this, come to the Zend booth. You can sign up. And as I said, a limited amount of companies are actually going to get someone like Maurice work with you and actually try and figure out where you could go. So that was continuous delivery, a key requirement to where we see agile application delivery going. The last one is cloud. And really the way I see cloud is an enabler to the first two. Cloud provides the flexibility, the agility, the consistency, and the scalability. Some of this could be done on bare metal. You can automate bare metal. You can do things consistently. But I would say it's a bit more difficult. So some of our customers, we have done a lot of that automation on bare metal, but with cloud, it's a lot easier and a lot more flexible to actually acquire resources and do what Maurice did, which was just, add 10 servers and let's see how it goes. That's a bit hard to do in a bare metal environment. In the past 2 years, we've been really busy at providing you choice of deployment in the cloud. We don't believe that you should be locked into any specific cloud environment. And so what we've done is basically build these one-click, scalable, elastic patterns with a variety of cloud vendors. And today we support over 10 clouds. I'm going to talk about some of the clouds in a second. Clicker problems. So one thing we were really excited about was IBM chose Zend Server as their enterprise PHP environment in IBM Smart Cloud. Today, any enterprise that wants to run PHP in the IBM cloud, they actually get Zend Server under the covers. And I don't know if you've been following the news, but IBM also acquired SoftLayer, which is a very significant player in the cloud. And so I would say overnight, IBM, I don't know of size, but has really grown its cloud footprint. And we're very, very proud to be able to deliver that same one-click, scalable, elastic experience that's completely automated in the IBM Smart Cloud. We're also extending the partnership with IBM and have also teamed up with Pivotal, which is the spin-off that came out of VMware, to bring Zend Server into Cloud Foundry. For those who haven't heard of Cloud Foundry, it's an open platform as a service. It will run both in the public cloud and on-premise. You have companies like IBM who've embraced it, Pivotal that's bringing that into enterprise environments. And so we thought this would be a really, really interesting environment for us to support. It is being a platform as a service. It has a lot more automation built into it by default. And our goal is to this quarter release a build pack for Cloud Foundry. So whether you're using cloudfoundry.com or want to try Cloud Foundry on-premise, this quarter we're going to have a build pack available for you that you can download and test and basically get this kind of experience in a Cloud Foundry environment. So that's about cloud, and we're going to continue to focus on delivering choice for you within the cloud environment. Now, it wouldn't be a ZenCon if I didn't briefly, one more slide. I forgot probably the biggest cloud out there, Amazon. So last year we announced support for Amazon CloudFormation, which is a way to automate that elastic scalable experience on the Amazon cloud. You saw Maurice demo an OpsWorks integration. OpsWorks is another automation capability in AWS that is based on Chef. We're going to support both of them because we think they answer different use cases, and we want to make sure you have the choice. We're also available on a pay-as-you-go basis through Amazon Marketplace. So if you want to just get started small, for under $100 a month, you can actually get the Zend Server experience on a pay-as-you-go basis and an hourly basis through the Amazon cloud. The other thing we're working on right now is we're actually bringing a lot of those monitoring capabilities and metrics into AWS CloudWatch. CloudWatch is Amazon's monitoring environment. That monitoring environment doesn't only give ops visibility into infrastructure, it also makes scale up, scale down decisions. And so there are really two big advantages of us bringing in our monitoring data and metrics into AWS CloudWatch. The first one is the ops team can actually also get application level visibility and not just infrastructure visibility. But the second one, which I think is really cool, is in the scale-up decision-making. Today, you can only do that based on infrastructure metrics. So for example, CPU load. Now, I think most of us know that CPU load is probably not the best way to make scale-up, scale-down decisions. By bringing some of our application metrics, like requests per second at the application level, we can help companies make smarter scale-up, scale-down decisions in the Amazon cloud. So you're going to see this increased level of integration. So it's not just Zend Server sitting on top of AWS, but it is a truly automated, elastic, highly available environment that just works out of the box. So as I said, I was going to say before, it wouldn't be a ZenCon without also mentioning Zend Studio. We are making an early access version of Zend Studio 10.5 available today. You can get it at the link below. We really put a huge emphasis on performance. We had teams focused on performance. Zend Studio 10.5 is 2 times faster than the previous version. The biggest improvement there is around code analysis and responsiveness in the editor. We put a lot of investment into improving our PHP toolbox support, so Composer support, PHP Unit, PHP Documenter are all very much improved. And our mobile capabilities are significantly upgraded. So our visual drag and drop mobile Composer has a lot more widgets and is a lot better than what we had before. And the second thing we did is we actually upgraded from the previous version of PhoneGap to PhoneGap 3.0 or Apache Cordova, which is the open source name. And that gives you an extension to additional mobile operating systems. And it also gives you a faster, lighter weight runtime to run your HTML5 JavaScript-based applications on mobile devices. So just to summarize, our focus in the past year and our focus going forward has been to help organizations truly implement an agile application delivery environment. You've already made the right choice of using PHP, which is in itself a super productive environment that is very interoperable. But we want to make sure that we take it to the next level and we really make sure all the requirements are met. And so we believe we can help you build the right architecture, build the right process, and give you as much choice as you need in cloud. And that's our commitment to you, that we're going to put a lot of emphasis on building this out. And our goal is, of course, to do that with you, with the community, and with our partners, so we can really make sure you have as broad of an ecosystem as possible you can take advantage of. So I wanted to thank you all for coming to ZenCon. There are a lot of opportunities to learn more about agile application delivery. Right after this keynote, Matthew is going to do a deep dive on app agility. So if you're interested, stay here. On Thursday, we have a really good continuous delivery panel. We're going to have a representative from Opscode, the company behind Chef. We're going to have VMware, and we're going to have one of our customers who's built continuous delivery on a panel sharing with you their opinion, not ours, on what they think a continuous delivery environment should look like. So take advantage of the show. Thanks for coming. Enjoy the show.
Thanks, folks. I hope you found that as exciting as I did. Just a couple of quick reminders. As Andy mentioned, Matthew is doing an app agility talk right after this session. I think it's actually scheduled in room 203. We also have on Wednesday an app agility keynote panel with questions and answers. So if you have questions, you'll be able to get them answered then. And right back in this room at 1:30, please join me with Peter S. Magnuson from engineering at Google. So go ahead, get to your first breakout sessions, and have a great day.